What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Early Wedge. I'm joined by Jason Sobel, Rick Gehman, hopefully joining us a little bit later, doing some stuff on HQ as we speak. Jason Sobel, it's been a long 4 or 5 days for you, and perhaps an even longer 4 or 5 days for one, Rory McIlroy, but the payoff is there.
I don't know about him. I'm exhausted. Whatever we say on this show, Sia, over the next little bit, I can guarantee that we're, at least myself, I'll speak for me, I'm not going to be able to put into words exactly what this meant to the game of golf, to Rory McIlroy, to history. This was tremendous. I've been covering major championships for 25 years, if you can believe that. And this is going to go down as one of my favorites that I've ever been to and one of the most momentous that I've ever been to.
Yeah, a lot of people in the chat really kind of celebrating the Rory win. You know, you tweeted out, Jason, before the round even started, that this was one of like the top 5 Masters you've ever covered. And correct me if I'm wrong, you've been covering Masters for what, 20 years now?
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder what your sentiment would be in terms of it being one of the best Masters if Rory had ended up losing. I'm sure it still would have been up there, but the fact that Rory was able to close it in the fashion that he did, and we'll cover that in a second, was truly incredible.
So the tweet that I had this morning was that it was one of the top 5 majors as far as intrigue and interest level on a Sunday morning going into the final round. And, you know, I could throw the 2019 Masters in there. I could throw probably a few others that Tiger was involved in, a couple of others, maybe Mickelson, Stenson at Troon. But for the most part, you know, the bigger ones that we've seen over the last couple of decades. That said, if Rory goes out and, you know, he takes a 4-shot lead after 10 and he turns that into a 6-shot victory, like, yeah, wow, good for Rory. He set history. He got the career Grand Slam, and I'm happy I was there to see it. But I don't know if it's, you know, as momentous. This thing was an absolute emotional roller coaster for all of us who weren't even invested. Look, I don't have any money on Rory McIlroy this week. This is one of those where, and just like 2019, I didn't have Tiger in 2019. By the end of it all, I'm like, man, I don't even care. Take all my money. I'll give it up for what I just saw right there. And I feel the exact same way about Rory. I know we're all trying to hit stuff on this channel here. We're all trying to make bets that hit. Great. That said, I'll gladly push in some chips to be able to watch some history. The second player in the last 58 years to capture the career Grand Slam. The next time we see it, honestly see it, it could be next month at Quail Hollow if Jordan Spieth can win a PGA championship, or it might not be for another half century. I mean, absolutely no idea when this might happen again.
It's incredible. A lot of people in the chat: Joseph Boza, Taylor DeHart, David Tock, Jared Bell, Jeff Stenberg, Jordan Atienza. There's so many of you in here with just a ton of comments. There's so much to cover here, Jason. I think we need to kick it off with what the roller coaster started with today. I mean, the whole question going into today was, would Rory be able to stay inside his bubble? Would he be intimidated by the moment? And yet you had detractors on one side and people who were, you know, I thought Rory was going to close, but I also thought, you know, it could shift back and forth. What I didn't expect, Jason, was a double on 1. And then for Bryson to take the lead on 2, and Bryson's looking real good. You know, Rory's putting it in the fairway off the tee in back-to-back holes, loses the lead. I mean, the panic button was hit immediately here.
Quick little story for you. So to peel back the curtain a little bit, I was doing post-round interviews for Masters Radio all week, and we were told Rory McIlroy would give us a one-on-one after yesterday's third round. And so I'm sitting there, I'm kind of scribbling out some notes on what I want to ask, and we get 2 questions. And, you know, this is all very quick, but 2 questions might be 30 seconds. It might be 3 minutes. It kind of depends how long my questions are, and certainly depends how long he feels like answering them for. So I've got the second question. I know where I want to go with that. I'm thinking about the first question. How do I want to phrase it? Next thing I know, I look up and Rory McIlroy is standing in front of me. And I say, Rory. And I don't know what the next word coming out of my mouth is going to be, Sia. And somehow I pieced together a question about, you've gone through adversity, but you've been here before with a lead at the Masters. What do you need to do differently? And what do you need to do tomorrow to win this golf tournament? Turned out okay. I was proud of myself because I literally had no thoughts in my head. And I could have said, Rory, I got something out. So I was a little proud of myself. That said, Rory said, look, I cannot think about the green jacket. I can't think about what a win would mean. I know all of that's in the back of my mind, but I have to think about that first tee shot. And my first thought would be on hit that tee shot in the fairway. Let's go out there, hit one on the green, give ourselves a chance. And then he hit it in the bunker. And then he hit one short. And then he hit one to the back of the green. And then he putted past the pin. And then he missed the next one. And he's walking off with a double. And all I could think was, what happened to the dude from yesterday? He was like, yeah. Patient, hit it in the fairway, and I'm not going to try to do too much. That was gone right away. In a way, and it's funny because Bryson's the one who told me this earlier in the week, said, I kind of like, this is after Thursday, and he made a few early bogeys on Thursday. He goes, I kind of like making a few early mistakes. It sort of frees me up. He's like, not that I'm trying to do it, but I don't mind it because I know I can make birdies, so it frees me up, and I play better golf. Look, Rory McIlroy this was the epitome. This was the microcosm of Rory McIlroy's career that we saw today, which is you can't handle all the good stuff. And so as soon as things start looking good, let's do some really dumb stuff. And you start going down, let's pull off the shot of our lives. Pull off the shot of your life, and then let's hit one in the creek. And you're like, what are we doing here? And so because of that, and because of the emotional roller coaster for anyone invested, whether monetarily or emotionally, with Rory McIlroy this weekend, it just turned into an all-time classic.
It's interesting because there were so many moments where you're like, all right, Rory's got this, including yesterday when he had a 4-shot lead, and then it was a 3-shot lead, and then a 2-shot lead. Still then a lot of people in those moments were like, oh, this is Rory's to lose. He's going to win this thing. But I wonder, I don't want to go full Fraser Crane here. I wonder if Bryson, because he takes the lead after 2 holes, he takes the lead. And I wonder if him going from the hunter to the huntee, and to your point, from Rory, like making the mistakes and being the guy who's actually like now having to come back, I wonder if that sort of shifted the mindset a little bit. I will say on 3, Rory stayed really aggressive off the tee. We got a Bryson 3-putt bogey. And all of a sudden, after the 4th hole, we've got a 3-stroke lead for Rory McIlroy. Jason, at that point, are you like, this is Rory's now? Now we're good. It's smooth sailing.
No, I like at no point. Like Rory was standing over a 3-footer in the playoff, and I still was like, well, if you can just lag it down there, we'll go to 10. We'll see what happens. At no point ever during this day did I ever think, yeah, Rory's got this. This thing's over. Maybe after like 10, when he had, as you see on the graphic there, a 4-stroke lead, I was like, all right, I think it's over. But there's still a couple of par 5s left, and things could happen. So no, I didn't think it was Rory's, but it just shows what a mental pursuit, what a mental grind this game is. And you put the world's best players on the world's hardest, or one of the world's hardest golf courses, at least the one that will make you think the most, in the tournament that means the most to these guys. And all of a sudden, your mind just gets jumbles. Everything starts moving quicker than you need it to. And I know you probably watched today. If you're laying on your couch out there, you were like, they played kind of slow. I wish they'd speed it up a little bit. I guarantee that Rory McIlroy, Bryson DeChambeau, everybody else who was involved in this was like, dude, that was a blur. Like, I don't even know what just happened out there. Everything was moving so quickly. And those are the guys that have been there, done that. Those are the guys that have won major championships, that have been top 5 players in the world, that have that have played their best golf at a very high level. And even for them, it's moving that quickly.
So I'll tell you when I thought Rory had it wrapped up. So here's what, just from a betting standpoint, I'll just let everybody know I wasn't going to take Rory. I had no dog in the fight. My picks were Morikawa and Xander Schauffele. Those didn't exactly play out. So I was just kind of cheering. But then when they were tied up, I think it was after the 2nd hole, maybe when Bryson took the lead, I ended up putting a small play on Rory, and it was on 11. When Rory had an approach that nearly, it was a few feet away from trickling into the water. Yes. And because it didn't, and as it was going, I expected it to hit water. I was like, okay, this is like a fate destiny thing. Like, that thing didn't go in the water. Like, Rory is good to go. And then 13 happened, Jason. And I'm like, what is even you're much more a golfer than I am, obviously. I don't even understand what that was on 13.
So I had a few of my colleagues who are watching with me in our Masters radio studio in the Augusta National Press Building say to me, how do you're Rory McIlroy, you're one of the best drivers in the history of golf. How do you not take out your driver on a par 5 and just hit it way down there? And I said, I don't mind the strategy. Here's what I minded, Sia, is that, okay, conservative off the tee, knock it down the fairway. We're going to lay up short of the creek. Fine, I'm okay with that. Now, all of a sudden, we've got a wedge in our hands from 86 yards out. Now we're going to get aggressive. Yeah. Now we're going to try to hit one like a little spinny wedge in there and try to knock it to 2 feet. Like, no, at that point, you've already got the two conservative shots out of the way. Let's stay conservative. Let's hold on to the lead. Hit one in the middle of the green. Instead, he spins one off the front, hits it in Rays Creek, makes a double, and you're like, what are you doing? The wheels are falling off in front of us. Yeah, incredible. And then I know we'll get to 15, but for him to go third shot, 86 yards into Rays Creek on 13, and then second shot, 205 yards to 5 feet, missed the eagle putt on 15. You're like, this is the stupidest game I've ever seen, and probably the stupidest round of golf I've ever seen from one of the best golfers that we've ever seen play.
So, yeah, and I want to get to 15. I want to get to 18. What was so interesting, though, Jason, is that when 13 happened, all of a sudden there was a lot more players in play. Not just, and Bryson was long gone pretty much at that point, but Justin Rose was in play. Ludwig was in play. Ludwig was an interesting note. I had a matchup today, Xander over Ludwig, and Xander was losing famously in that matchup. And then 18 happened, and it was going so poorly, Jason, that I actually tweeted out, hey, this one's a loss. I wasn't even doing the reverse jinx. It was over. And then 18 happened. And I'm like, and of course I get back on Twitter and I'm like, I don't even understand my reverse jinx powers, but all those guys were in play.
That feels like one after Ludwig makes, was it triple or quadruple?
Yeah, triple. It was a triple.
He made triple on the last hole. That feels like one where he's going to get called into the commissioner's office tomorrow afternoon and be like, hey, we know Sia
funny business
against you yesterday. Are you colluding here? What's going on?
Oh, you're so right. You're so right. Let's talk about 18. And I'm sure, like, I gotta reference the chat in a couple of minutes. I'm sure there's other places and other golfers that we can talk about with this recap. But Rose drains a long putt on 18, and then it's Rory's turn to finish it off. How long was that putt that he missed? I'm honestly not sure. Was it 5 feet?
4.5.
4.5 feet.
4.5, yeah.
And at that point, Jason, you're like, oh, these moments, at least at Augusta, are just too big for Rory McIlroy. I've seen too much since like hole 13, almost dipping it in the water in 11. And then I see the short miss on 18. I'm like, I don't have any other explanation other than Rory cannot handle this particular moment at Augusta.
The putt was bad, and I will absolutely give you that. And I'm not going to, make excuses for him there. I thought the wedge shot was worse. He did the hard part. Driving the fairway. The driving was on and off all day. And finally, take out driver, put it in the fairway. Okay, we did the hard part. Now we've got a wedge in our hands from the short stuff. It was the nerviest wedge shot I've ever seen Rory McIlroy hit. And he's hit some nervy wedge shots over the years, but to push that out to the right and put it in the bunker, it's like he didn't even finish the swing. That was, and after he hit a beautiful one into 17, I'm sure, and I haven't been able to watch the press conference yet, but I'm sure when Rory's asked about that, he will admit that was as nervy a swing as he's ever had, thinking about not just, hey, let's put it in the middle of the green, spin it back to the hole a little bit, lag a putt down there and win the Masters. This was, let's try to do something. And then the putt, I probably didn't help that for the first time, I believe in the history of the game, there's a graphic on the screen saying to win the career Grand Slam. Our folks at CBS, our colleagues, I get it. Look, there are no jinxes in this game. There's no curses. They're not. When the announcer, when Joe Buck says, or Jim Nantz says, this kicker's 57 for 57 inside 40 yards and he misses one, it's not the announcer's fault. He just happened to miss it.
Yeah.
They can't hear you, okay? So it's nobody else's fault. When it says for a career Grand Slam on there, all of a sudden everyone's like, oh boy, oh no. Rory doesn't know that's on the screen.
Well, yeah, of course not. I mean, if you're a producer in this moment, like you want to capture the image, you kind of have to put that up there. But I understand the pushback when he like doesn't even come close to making the putt. I mean, he barely. I mean, I'm getting my putts mixed up. He barely scared the edge of that hole. I mean, it wasn't close.
And look, you can't miss it low side. You miss it low side, you don't even give it a chance. You miss it high side, at least it has a chance of tumbling in the side door. You miss it low side, the ball's never going into the hole. It was a bad read. It was a bad putt. I'm sure he'll admit that afterwards. Look, the way you get away with that is you go to a playoff and you went to 3 feet instead. And quite honestly, I mean, I was watching the 3-footer like this, like, oh boy, I don't like. And again, I'm not invested, and I quite honestly would be very happy. I have a good relationship with Justin Rose. If Justin Rose won this golf tournament, I'd be gutted for Rory, who I've gotten to know very well over the years as well, but I'd be extremely happy for Justin Rose. So this is not like a partisan, like, oh, I'm just a Rory guy and I want him to win. It's just watching history is great. Also, boy, I would feel for Rory if he lost in that fashion. And I said before the day started, Sia, that we were at the point where Sunday was either going to be the greatest moment of Rory McIlroy's career or the worst moment of his career. He had a 2-shot lead, 18 holes to play. If he doesn't bring this thing home, and I know some people, and I tweeted this out, some people said, well, what if he shoots 68 and Bryson shoots 65 and beats him? It still means he didn't do enough and he didn't win the golf tournament. Whatever happened, even if he played really well, not bringing home a green jacket after having the lead going into this and having a chance for the career slam and playing the way he is so well so far this year, I just thought it was all or nothing today for him, quite honestly.
Curious that he was able to win with 4 double bogeys across 4 rounds, which is obviously never been done before. And it's like, that should surprise nobody. You don't win the Masters having 4 double bogeys unless apparently you're Rory McIlroy. Talk to me a little bit about Justin Rose. I thought the dynamic was really interesting because going into the round, we talked about this yesterday with Rick a little bit. Like it felt like kind of good versus evil. Now you might have different opinions on who's good and who's evil, right? Like, but the point is, it was like Bryson, a very much a different character than one Rory McIlroy, and so like it's very easy to kind of pit those sides against each other. Once Bryson fell out and suddenly Justin Rose fell in towards the very end of the tournament, it felt like people were still rooting for Rory, but then all to your point, we're like, yeah, Justin Rose feels like a good class guy too. I thought the dynamic was a lot different down the stretch. And I'll tell you this, I want you to speak to that a little bit, but I thought Rory was cooked as soon as on the 18 in OT, if you will, extra holes, when Justin put it in the fairway. Yeah. I was like, if Rory doesn't get in the fairway here, he's probably shaky as it is. Like this thing could be over.
And then Rose hit, and he's going to go first, of course, because Rory's going to hit it past him off the tee. And Rory hit a good tee shot to his credit. And Rose hits one in there to about 10, 12 feet. I was in our Masters radio office in the press building when we were watching that playoff hole. And at least 2, maybe 3 of my colleagues who have played on tour all looked at that putt. These guys have been reading greens at Augusta National, making calls the entire week. They all looked at Rose standing over the putt and go, he's reading it wrong. He was reading it to go left, and that putt was going right the whole way, and you saw it miss on the right edge. And I just think that was a bad read. He aimed points, and so you see him kind of standing over, straddling the line a little bit, but I don't think Justin Rose ever read that right. Kind of let Rory off the hook a little bit, but yeah, look, this was momentous. You get back to the good versus evil with Rory and Bryson. I hesitate to say that. I know where you're going with that. And it's PGA Tour and it's Live and it's, a guy who's, become sort of synonymous and the face of the game, and another guy who's, doing YouTube videos, hitting a ball over his house. But look, Bryson's become wildly popular. 100%. I like Bryson. Even when Bryson wasn't popular 5 years ago, I was there. I was right next to Golf Channel's set doing interviews at the PGA at Kiawah when Phil won, when Brooks Koepka did his eye roll to Bryson, and it was like the eye roll heard around the world. Yeah. Even then, I liked Bryson. Every once in a while, he tried to sound like the smartest guy in the room, and I think he's matured and not tried to sound like he's smarter than everybody else and he knows more than everybody else. But Bryson is always, in my mind, a very good interview. He's very generous with his time. This guy that after rounds, he wants to go beat balls for 2 hours at the range. Always comes to us, always does media obligations with a smile, has something good to say. So I struggle to call it good versus bad, good versus evil, but I know where you're going with that. And like, there were so many narratives. I'm not sure I can remember a day. And again, we're using a lot of superlatives here. We're using a lot of big adjectives, but I'm not sure I could ever remember a day that had more narratives coming into it than we had for the final round of the Masters.
Oh, that's absolutely true, I'm sure. And by the way, I liked Bryson back then too. I mean, he definitely had his issues with, just kind of like sounding a little too arrogant here and there. But I like did shows with Rick actually, like I'm talking like 4 or 5 years ago, where I was actually defending Bryson. But we know what the perception is ultimately, because anybody who goes on Live, but especially Bryson, since he's sort of one of the captains of that ship. But, and also even pre-Live, there were certain preconceived notions of him. I thought it was great theater. I thought Justin Rose coming back at the end was great theater. Did you see anything this week that, or before the tournament or during post-round interviews, or maybe just sometime this year, that led you to believe Justin Rose was going to be in the mix at Augusta?
Probably not really from the results, but speaking with him after the first round, after the second round, like I got the sense that like, yeah, I can kind of see it. Things have been building to a little crescendo. He said last week wasn't a great result. I don't even know where he finished exactly at the Valero Texas Open, but he said it wasn't a great result, but the performance was getting there. Things were starting to feel better. And I know going back a few years, in fact, I just referenced Kiowa about Brooks and Bryson and their incident. At the end of Kiowa, I probably shouldn't give this away, but let's just say that, you know, Justin Rose and some of our group stayed out late until the night and had a good time at the clubhouse there at Kiowa. And I spent a lot of time speaking with him, you know, not just, you know, having fun and having a couple of beverages, but he told me all about how he turned like an RV into his personal workout room. He's like, look, I only have so many years left and I want them to be really good. And I know we always talked about this in terms of Tiger Woods, that Tiger outworked everybody else in the game. And I would always kind of raise my hand and be like, how do we know that?
Yeah.
Like there's no way to there's no strokes gained work. So yes, I think Tiger works really hard at his game. I'm not trying to take down Tiger, but I don't know who's working harder or not as hard as he is. And Justin Rose, a guy that probably doesn't talk about it that much. You know, you probably don't see it from him, but I know how much he's been working over the last 3, 4, 5 years. It was really once he turned 40 and he's 44 now, he really started to like, you know, clamp down, say, I don't want to just kind of fade into the sunlight and, you know, start my PGA Tour Champions career and be a Ryder Cup captain. I want to do something in my 40s. And so knowing how hard he's worked over the years, it doesn't totally surprise me that he's still playing really good golf at this late stage of his career.
I want to ask you about another golfer and whether that golfer surprised you. By the way, Jen M is in the chat. She says, Masters Sunday as fire as each of the final 4 games. That's true, if not more so. And then she says,
come on.
Yeah, I mean, it was more so. She says, Patrick Reed's Eagle on 17 got him the top pass champion winner over Scotty, which is crazy. Because I don't know, Jason, if it was the show you were on with me, but we talked about that ticket and how much we liked Scotty. I think it was like plus 100 or something like that.
Thanks, Jen. Hadn't even thought about it until now.
That's brutal. Talk to me about Patrick Reed, though, because again, I pitched this whole good versus evil thing, and that's not my opinion. It's just like the public perception out there with Bryson and with Liv and all that stuff. Well, Patrick Reed might better embody that, at least from a public perception standpoint. Any visions of him doing as well as he did? I know he's always good at Augusta, but I got to admit, I didn't expect him to do it again.
I liked Reed coming into this week. Top 20 type play. I don't know if I said that on the show earlier this week. I might have had it in my BetMGM article. In any case, even if I didn't, I liked him, but yeah, it was around like a top 20 kind of finish. I did not see a third place finish coming for Patrick Reed. He really showed out this weekend. I was very impressed with what he's got. I think what we've seen, Sia, from the Live players over the last 3 years is that some of them go over to Live, and when they get a chance to be in the spotlight and play against the game's best players, they jump at that chance and they revel in it. Some of the players have sort of like gotten a little lazy, a little less motivated. They've taken the money, and you see them in major championships, and you're like, it's not the same player that we'd seen before. It doesn't mean they can't come back and start playing better golf. And I still think Jon Rahm's a great case. Jon Rahm finished in the top 20 this week. He needed a birdie putt on 18 Friday afternoon just to make the cut. Did that and then had a really nice weekend. And I do think that Jon Rahm's going to be a factor in at least one of the final 3 major championships this year. But Reed and Bryson have shown that, hey, even though they went to Live, they're still competitors. They can still show up the major championships and play really good golf. Yeah, Brooks falling off a little bit, although we know he can contend at any major. Cam Smith, kind of nowhere to be found. Let's see who some of the other Live guys. I mean, Dustin Johnson hasn't been good for quite some time. And it does feel like he's, you know, sometimes we can just throw around the words like, oh, they're not taking it seriously. I mean, sometimes they're just not playing good golf, but it does feel like DJ is just maybe like not as locked in as some of these other guys. Alex Jones in the chat throws out, shout out Bubba Watson. Look. Oh, yeah. I used to rank the whole field. I didn't do it this week. If I had ranked the whole field, I'm telling Bubba Watson would have been outside the top 60 for me probably. He would have been like, easily making the cut. And, you know, so like good on Bubba Watson for finishing, I believe, share of 14th place this week.
Okay. What's more surprising? Bubba Watson finishing T14 or Max Homa finishing T14?
Oh.
I mean,
those
are absolute shocks.
Look, this is a guy who he got fired by his caddy last week. You know how hard it is to be a 6-time PGA Tour winner who's getting into the majors and the signature events? I mean, it's not like, he's going to be struggling to keep his card. Like, this guy's in big events because he's won in recent years. His caddy, who's his best friend from childhood, said, look, I can't do this anymore. Caddied for Justin Thomas, we think temporarily this week, Joe Griner. But the fact that Max Homa was fired by his caddy, goes out there with a new caddy and plays great. Look, I'm so happy for him. I think this can boost him a little bit, give him some momentum moving forward. We talk about golf being a mental game, and Rory's talked all about throughout the entire week and afterwards tonight about what a mental pursuit it is. I guarantee that Max Homa has slayed a few demons of his own. Doesn't mean they're gone. Doesn't mean he's going to go out and start winning golf tournaments again, but this is going to be a huge weight off his shoulders. The fact that, okay, I can still play some good golf. Like I'm still a very good professional golfer who can make birdies and post good scores. Yeah, Josh, our esteemed producer, talking about how Max Homa's Thursday wasn't all that great, and he could have absolutely checked out because not on purpose, but just, the game hasn't been there, and he was completely locked. In fact, now that I think about it, I think on Thursday, I had JJ Spawn over Max Homa, and I paid heavy juice on it, minus 150. They ended up tying on Thursday, both like slightly underwhelming rounds. But I thought Max Homa, the reason I laid the minus 150, Jason, is because I just thought Max Homa was going to do the thing he's been doing the last 12 months, which is completely explode and just completely lose it. This guy was locked in for 4 days. It was so impressive. Reminds me of Victor Hovland at the Valspar Championship a few weeks ago. If you had asked Victor Hovland before the Valspar, how is Victor Hovland going to play? Victor Hovland would have said, don't bet on Victor Hovland because Victor Hovland isn't playing very well right now. Right. And if you had gone up to Max Homa on Wednesday and at least asked him to be honest and given him a little truth serum and said, how is Max Homa going to play this week, Max Homa? Max Homa would have said, don't bet on Max Homa this week. So I love it when that happens, when guys don't even know themselves. It's one thing when a guy says, look, I've been working hard on my game. I've been getting some good results, and I feel like a big one's coming. Okay, that makes sense. When a guy's like, dude, I'm lost. I don't know what's happening right now. It's going to take a little while, and then he goes out and plays well. I think that's awesome. By the way, speaking of guys not playing well, a little shout out to Nick Dunlap. I spoke with him after Friday's round. He went 90-71. I was the first one to walk up to him in the flash area, the interview area at Augusta, and I said, Nick, you must be really happy. You picked up 19 strokes from what you did yesterday. And I was expecting him to kind of laugh a little and go, yeah, yesterday's yesterday. I played good today. He was despondent. He said, I don't know where it's going right now. I had to keep driver in the bag. I just kind of dinked and dunked it around there. And I shot a good score, but things are dark right now. And I don't feel good about my game. I mean, he was extremely open and honest. I think a lot of people here have probably seen the quotes from him. Stood there and answered 21 questions for 15 minutes from all angles about lots of different aspects of the game and PGA Tour life. And look, he's going to earn a lot of fans based on what he did this week. A lot of guys would be 12 over through 13 in the first round or whatever he was and say, all right, elbow hurts a little bit. Let's get out of here. Warm up the jet. And instead, he stuck it out, said he's never withdrawn from anything, and he never will withdraw as long as he's not injured. And I thought that was really cool. So I think a lot of people are rooting for Nick Dunlap to have a similar resurgence to Victor Hovland and Max Homa, guys who also weren't playing well recently. Yeah, I totally agree. Actually, we got to get to a break in a second, but I do have a follow-up question on Nick Dunlap and some of these other guys that didn't contend, but had some interesting storylines. And I think Rick Gehman is going to be joining us hopefully within the next 10 minutes or so. So everybody hang on for that. We're not 100% sure he's going to be able to show up, but we're pretty sure he's showing up within the next 10 or so. And I do want to give a shout out to Patrick McDonald too. Of course, was at Augusta with you, Jason, and with Rick Gehman, but he interviewed Max Homa 30 minutes ago. It's on the Golf on CBS YouTube channel. You can Google it. You can just Google Max Homa, Patrick McDonald. You'll see the interview. It was a 30-minute interview. Jason, I don't know if you've seen it. It was really extremely candid, not just from a golf standpoint, but just from a Max Homa life standpoint. I highly encourage people to go back and listen to that interview because Patrick's really good at kind of
opening the door for somebody to be just very frank and sincere with the interviewer. So he did that. I think Max is probably that guy anyway, but go check out that interview. It's really great. Okay, we're going to get to a break and we're going to come back. More Masters 2025. Rory wears the green jacket. Finally, take a break. All right, we're back on the early wedge, and I'm already seeing comments. Rick Funkan says, can't wait for Sia to hit a plus 5,000 first round leader next week. I'll tell you, when I was, and Jason, I just told you this before we went hot, but when we were getting prepared to do this final recap show, I was already studying the Corrales Punta Cana, which for the record, I should be studying the RBC. And
yeah, maybe
I'm already looking at guys I like I have a list. I'm looking at all the stats. I'm going to spend the next few hours after this show looking at RBC and Corrales Punta Cana. Because here's the thing, Jason, I know early wedge, we want to do like a recap, but these are betting shows too. Mm-hmm. I don't enjoy betting on the Masters. And it's just simple. Cause like from an outright and first round leader standpoint, granted matchups are one thing, but like it's Rory and Scotty at the top, and it's like I kind of don't want to bet those. And then if I bet the without market, I'm like I don't want to be that guy because the math isn't great on the without market. I go to Corrales Punta Cana, and I'm looking at just like Chan Kim and Sam Stevens and like 70 to 35 and 100 to 1 shots and just random. So I'm just saying it feels so much more comfortable going into next week, knowing that I don't have to deal with Scotty Scheffler and Rory McIlroy. They're too good.
I completely agree with that. First of all, I don't think Rory's playing the RBC Heritage. I assume Scotty is, being the defending champion.
Oh, yeah, good point.
That said, I'm with you. Look, I said on the Tuesday show that we did earlier this week that for me, the first thing I do when I sit down, I start studying, start doing research, I got a list of the field on here, and I start going, and I start crossing guys down. Okay, no form for him, no course history, not feeling this guy, whatever it might be. I'm starting to cross off names. I'm doing the process of elimination. I got to the Masters this week, and of course, the odds have been out for the Masters for a year, so it's not like we're waiting on Monday for the odds to be released, but you're sitting there looking, you're like, okay, at the top is Scotty. Can't cross him off the list. He's really good. He's trending. Yeah. Next guy's Rory. It's like, well, love to see it happen. I didn't get there on him, but look, if you did it plus 650, congratulations to you. Next on the list was Morikawa, then Oberg. Then Justin Thomas, I think, John Rahm. All those guys, I started going down the list, and I'm like, the process of elimination, usually of the top 15 names, I can cross out 10 of them. Whether the number's too short, whether there's something I don't like about them, the trend's not there. This week, I look at the top 15, and I'm like, I don't know. So I get exactly what you're saying about betting the Masters. I'm not quite down there yet with the Corrales. I'm probably going to start with the RBC Heritage, because I've been talking to these guys all week, and I've seen a few. By the way, if we want to talk about just a little bit, and I've done no research, and guys, I left the course 45 minutes ago, so I'm really not in Harbor Town mode yet. But Xander Schauffele is starting to trend in the right direction. Again, he's probably going to be a shorter number next week than he was this week, but I would think somewhere in the 16 to 1 range for Xander, which I think is pretty good. It's probably more of a top 5 type play for me. I think Shane Lowry, I know it was a terrible Sunday for him, but watching his buddy win the Masters, it's almost like a weight's been lifted from Shane's shoulders a little bit too. If you saw that bear hug he embraced in after the 18th hole, I feel like Shane Lowry could have a really good week as well.
By the way, you're right. Scotty, of course, is defending, but not only that, it's a signature field. So this is I don't think Rory's playing in it, to your point, but this is going to be like a lot of the big names. All the more reason for me to break down the Corrales Punta Cana first. But that's actually going to be a really exciting event. It's the 5th of, I guess, 8 signature events. So we're going to have like pretty much all the heavy hitters outside of Rory and maybe a couple other names that I haven't thought of yet.
Yeah, and again, these guys can now skip the signature events. A few years ago, Rory skipped after he said we've all got to play the signature events, and but now I guess they can skip them if they'd like. They're giving up free money and free points and all that comes with it. So we may say, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a few more withdrawals in the next couple of days. The thing that the RBC Heritage does have going for it is that it's only a few hours away. Whether you're gassing up a jet and just going up and then down, or whether you're hopping in a car and driving there, or taking a limo service, or whatever you're doing, it's not that hard of a trip. So it's not like these guys have to go cross country to go play.
Jason, I got to keep you on a little bit longer because I know Rick's going to be joining us in a few, and I know how exhausted you must be, and I'm sure Rick is too, by the way. And you're probably working off adrenaline, and I kind of want to talk to the adrenaline part of it. You were at Augusta for what, really 5 days, right? Maybe bordering on 6 at this point.
7. Yeah, I got here last
7.
Sunday.
So talk to me about, like, during the event or maybe pre-event, anything that you witnessed from a player standpoint or just from a storyline standpoint that you look back at it now and you're like, okay, like, it's all kind of coming together. This makes sense that this player did well, or this player crashed and burned, or maybe an interview that you did, all those post-round interviews that you did, anything kind of like ringing true to you in terms of, okay, now, like, I'm starting to see what they were saying.
You go back to Rory, and Rory spoke so much this week about having a game plan and being patient. And even I go back to some things that Rory said previously. Earlier this year, he said, Scotty Scheffler won 9 times last year. I need to start being more like Scotty. Scotty knows when to be aggressive and when to be conservative. I'm a little too aggressive too often, and I need to play more like Scotty. And I'm guessing, and again, I haven't had a chance to listen to the press conference. I'm sure some of the people in chat and people that are watching right now did watch the press conference. I wouldn't be surprised if Rory said, yeah, I was trying to play like Scotty. 13, I hit a bad wedge shot, but I was trying to play like Scotty. I've got a lead. Let's give everyone the stiff arm, give everybody the Heisman, and try to keep them there. The other thing that I really liked from Rory this week was that on Tuesday, he came into the press building and said, I'm not doing anything differently. And just by saying I'm not doing anything differently, that was different than everything he's done at Augusta National in previous years. Yeah. He's tried to play the few previous weeks leading into the Masters. He's tried to take those weeks off. He's tried to make multiple scouting trips to Augusta. He's tried to just show up Monday morning. He's tried to make it mean everything to him. And he's tried to trick himself into thinking that it means nothing at all. He's done everything to win this golf tournament. And this week he basically said, look, there's no tricks, there's no gimmicks, there's no anything else. I'm working with Bob Rotella. I'm going to go out there and just have a good game plan and go play golf. And that turned out to be the winning strategy after all these years for Rory McIlroy.
So there are so many fans of Rory McIlroy, and I'm not like Rory's biggest fan. Like I'm not a detractor either. It's just I didn't really have a dog in the fight today, Jason, other than the fact that it did seem like the right thing was for Rory to, like, tackle this, especially, coming from the lead and, all of that stuff, and just breaking down against who was it? Bryson DeChambeau last year, when it was down to them two. Jason, and I know you're not necessarily, like, I don't know if you have, like, favorite golfers, right? Like, yeah, right. So you cover the sport. You have guys you like. You have you guys that maybe give you a stiff arm or just give the media a stiff arm in general. But I do know that one of Rory McIlroy's biggest fans is one Josh Mullinex, who is our producer. Mm-hmm. Josh, can you come on? Because I want to know from a fan. Thank you for joining us, Josh. Everybody in the chat, say what's up to Josh. He runs this show more than you think he runs this show. And it's great to have him on the show from time to time. Josh, I want to understand from a true Rory fan. Like yesterday after the recap, people don't know this because you were off camera, but we talked. You were, like, legitimately nervous. So yeah. I can't imagine how things went from hole 1 through the playoff hole where he finally won that roller coaster. Just speak to us. How did that go?
Oh, I've been thinking about what I would say if Rory won another major for half a decade, and also what I would say if Rory won a green jacket, because he hasn't won one since I really, like, started to think about golf on a deep level. And because it's been 11 years, I was, 16 years old the last time he won a major. And it was the thing I keep coming back to is that it was never going to happen in any other way than this. Mm-hmm. He wasn't going to cruise ever. He was probably not going to be behind for the entire round and then go birdie, birdie, birdie to finish, because I didn't think he had that in him either. It was always going to be a combination of he's clearly the best player in the field this week and he can't get out of his own way. And over and over again, it was, I can't believe we're doing this on one. But he had something to go back to this week, which I thought was really important, that he had twice already this week come back from everyone kind of thinking that he was done. Mm-hmm. And Thursday was like that. In the middle of Saturday, it felt like he spent an hour trying not to lose the tournament on Saturday. And that made me super nervous. But then he came back, hit the shot on 15 yesterday. And it was just that kind of over and over again, that cycle of can't get out of his own way. And thankfully he was, he picked the right side of the cycle at the very end of the tournament. Also, Rick is here.
Let's bring on Rick too.
I want to make the point, guys. And Josh, I would think, hey, there he is.
Yes.
Hello, Rick.
What's up, boys?
Go ahead, Jason.
I was going to make a point. I'll lead this into Rick as well. But that might have been the most stressful round of golf, not just for us, not just for Rory fans, but for Rory McIlroy. I mean, we've only had 6 winners of the career Grand Slam in 90 years. Gene Sarazen was not thinking about, the career slam's on the line back in 1935 when he's clinching it. I don't think Ben Hogan was thinking in those terms. Nicklaus and Player, maybe just a little bit. Tiger was 24 years old, I believe, 25 years old when he did it. And so he wasn't thinking in terms of like, man, this is my last great chance. He's thinking I'm going to win 37 majors someday, so it doesn't really matter. To win the career Grand Slam, to claim the slam, this is really like the first time we've ever seen a round with this kind of stress, this kind of pressure. And Rory McIlroy, I guess, sort of lived up to it. I mean, he sort of lived down to it a lot of times as well, but he wound up getting it done somehow, Rick.
Rick, two things real quick. You look fresh as ever somehow. The other thing I was going to ask Josh this, but I'm going to ask you this, and we can just kind of gauge Josh's reaction. How many times today did you think Rory McIlroy had won the Masters, and how many times did you think he had legitimately lost his chance to win the Masters?
Maybe 3 of each.
Yeah.
It before the round, I thought he's playing the best golf out of anybody here. He's got a 2-shot lead. He makes double on the first. I thought, see ya. So we're good here. We can just pack it in. I'm sure you guys have talked about this, but just like the whiplash of starting with 11 strokes in the first 2 holes, and then by the time he was through 4, he had extended his lead to 3.
Yeah.
I was like, what is happening right now? And then when he's 4 clear, after 10, let's start getting the jacket sized up, right? Like let's go. The unbelievable double he makes at 13, which was the sickest thing ever. It's over. Because as this is happening, Rosie's, like everybody else, is kind of going nuts. Rosie's playing great golf. And then, probably one more time. He makes when he dumped it into the bunker on 18 in regulation. I was like, well, now he's definitely going to lose this thing. Like, it was crazy, guys. Obviously.
Did you have an opportunity? Because I know when you're working the event, so to speak, like you're not always in the right place at the right time. Today, did you have the opportunity to catch any of those crazy moments, whether from 1 through the playoff?
Yeah, I mean, we were out there so we got done an HQ hit right as they were playing. They had just finished 7. So we caught up with them on 8 and took it the whole way. So we wanted to be there we wanted to stand behind him at 10 and watch him have to hit that shot on 10 with a multiple shot lead, which he executed perfectly. And I thought, oh man, this is cake. This is over. It's obviously a little bit difficult to see at times, but you can get some good angles. And then you start playing the game with the roars and the groans and the moans and trying to decipher what all of that means. I mean, when they posted, Jason, I don't know if you had a vantage point of this, but when they posted Rory's double on 13, so it doesn't happen all simultaneously, but it happens within like 3 seconds of each other. Every scoreboard gets updated. So you heard audible groans from Amen corner to 16 to 18 to 2. Like every place there's a scoreboard, it was, like 5 times in 15 seconds.
It's it was crazy. I mean, the telecast was showing a little bit of that where there was one time in particular, I think it's when Roy dumped it in the water on 13, where they were updating the scoreboard and it was like the crowd went wild, so to speak. It was absolutely crazy. Josh, I had to think when he put it in the water on 13 in particular, we covered this, of course, but what was going through your head at that time?
He hit perfect wedges all week.
Yeah.
He didn't make a real mistake with a wedge until the back 9 on Sunday. Everything was exactly what he's been talking about for the last 4 months about the 3/4 wedge. I saw I saw 3 quarters on Twitter 1,000,000 times in the first 3 days because he didn't make any of those mistakes. I kind of think 13 was a little it tricked us a little bit because I think there's a world in which he plays 13 pretty poorly this week, like not very far from that at all. And he hit a shot on 13 today that bit him. And the iron on Friday really could have bit him. He almost made a couple of mistakes, and that time he did, but it felt like he had gotten deep enough into the back nine that I was like, okay, there's no way it happens now, right? And then he hit probably the worst wedge shot I've ever seen a professional hit under the circumstances. And then we had no idea what was coming. Absolutely no idea.
Have we talked about the fact that he had the same exact number, 125 yards on 18 in regulation and in the playoff on 18? And for him to stand up, and so the weak shot that he hits into the bunker in regulation, and then to stand up there 15 minutes later after Rosie had already hit it to, I don't know, 8 or 10 feet. I don't know what the official number was sick. Like, that was legit sick.
Well, what we talked about too was on that hole, obviously Rose got to go first and puts it just dead in the fairway. And I'm like, all right, now the pressure is really on to, like, just, if you don't stick it in the fairway here, like you're in big, big trouble. And then to your point, now Justin Rose ups the ante because he puts it to whatever it was, 15 feet. And I honestly, in that moment, both of those moments, when Rose put it in the fairway off the tee and when Rose put it to whatever it was, 15 feet, both of those moments, I was like, unfortunately, I think Rory McIlroy loses.
Could you imagine if Rose made the putt in the playoffs and Rory has a tickler extended?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
At first I thought it was going to be 2 feet 6 inches. I kept trying to find the place where it gave me the official distance, because that was the distance of the putt he missed at Pinehurst last summer, 2 feet 6 inches.
Did you ever find it?
I did not. The Masters website only gives like full, like rounded numbers. So I was never able to find it. I think it was probably a little longer than that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the thing I kept coming back to was Rory's best moments today were when he had no choice but to just depend on how good of a golfer he is. Like, Rose has hit it to 12 feet. You have to stuff it. There's no more game theory of, I got a 1-shot lead, I don't want to pull it left on 18. I just want to hit a safe shot 2-putt and win the tournament and kind of leave this weak fadey thing out to the right that goes into the bunker. The best shots he hit in the middle of the round were all, I mean, you got to hit this massive 9-iron through a gap on 5 because you have no other choice. On 7, you have to hit this massive 9-iron over the tree to a front right pin because you have no other choice. Like, if you wanted to get it on the green, you just have to do these things. And then, of course, the 7-iron on 15. If you want to go for the green, you have to do this. You have no choice. And in those moments, those were the thing that was when he played his best golf. And I think on 18, the second time around, it was, hey, you have to stuff it because Rose just did.
It does feel like when he wasn't playing aggressively, what was it where it was 13 where he laid up off the tee. When he wasn't playing aggressively, that's when things started to bite him. But when he was just like, and it's interesting because we talk about this year about Rory McIlroy being kind of more of course management-ish. And that's probably how you should approach Augusta. But to your point, Josh, it feels like when he just ripped it, that's when things were falling for him.
It's the combination of the two. It's the knowing when to step on the gas that's so important. I think he lost it a little bit in the middle of the back nine.
Jason, how many Masters have you been to?
First one was 05. I've missed a couple in there. It's probably 17 or so.
Okay. I know the term instant classic gets thrown around way too much.
Throw it. Yes.
But someone who has experienced 17 some odd of these, is this like a top 2, 3, 1? Like this is legit an instant classic.
I mean, look, I can go over the last 30 years. Let's start. Okay. Let's go 30.
All right.
You've got 97.
Great.
Tiger
I'm
wins
happy.
by a
I'm
million,
happy with that. I'm
21
happy.
years old.
Yeah.
You've got 86. Wait, I'm going more than 30 years. Sorry, I can't do math. Long week, guys. 40 years. 86. Jack wins at 46 years old. It's up there.
Yep.
You've got 19. Tiger wins in his 40s.
Yep.
Fifth one after we thought it would never happen. You've got this one. I mean, I don't think you could put any others in there. Phil's first one was pretty good, and probably at the time you'd say, how could that not be in the top 4 of whatever the next 40 years are going to be? But it doesn't break into that foursome there. So I think those 4 are pretty much above and beyond anything else like since that era. Before then, boy, I'd have to really like go through, and obviously, that was before my time, before I was here. I've seen all the Masters and seen the history of everything. But I mean, that's a pretty good list just for 1980 and beyond, something like that.
Yeah, you're not going to get any arguments from me on those. It's like at worst the 4th best in the last 40 years.
Yeah, and you could
worst.
Look in 97. 97 was there for historical terms. You've got a 21-year-old multicultural next superstar, beginning of an era, and you're like, wow, that was really cool. The event itself wasn't that great. He won by 12, right?
He rolled. So this came down to literally the last stroke. It had ups, it had downs, it had guys making doubles, and like all of that, and it had the historical aspect to it.
That's the thing. I think it's the roller coaster. We thought it was Bryson and Rory, and then it became, okay, now it's Rory and Rose or Ludwig. Like there were so many points where you thought you knew who the winner was, and then it was like, okay, no, he's dropping it, and he didn't just drop it and have like the other guy come back. It's a whole new crop of guys that are up against him. I've never witnessed, and you guys have watched more golf than I have. I've never witnessed at a major such a roller coaster. It was just the back and forth every couple of holes. It was a new storyline. It was crazy.
So we looked it up. Sure. They have so Elias Sports Bureau, the guys who do like all the stats and all the stuff, right? All the the craziness. They are on site at a lot of major championships, so you can like go down. They sit in the front row in the media center, and you're like, hey, has this ever happened before? And they will look it up. So I asked them, we asked them to check, and they could not find. They have all like the hole by hole and group by group stuff back for like 35 or 40 years, and they could not find any time where there were more than two shot swings over the first 9. So these were 3. There was a couple of swings in 2022 with Scheffler and Cam Smith, but they like could not find anything that resembled the way, especially right out of the gate, that this was flopping around. So
a couple things here. No player ever had won a Masters with 4 double bogeys over 72 holes. No player had won with 2 double bogeys in the final round like Rory did. I mentioned it before, Rick, but second player to complete the career Grand Slam in the last 58 years. And again, what makes this so interesting, so intriguing, is that the next player to complete the career Grand Slam, and I mentioned this at the beginning of the show, it might be Jordan Spieth in a month from now.
Oh my gosh! Could you imagine if we go 2 and 58 and then 2 and 2 majors?
Or it might not happen for 50 years. Like it might never happen again. Well, who knows?
I think I was just getting backstage when I liked your point, Jason, about like the first couple guys who did this didn't even know they were doing it. Like,
right.
It wasn't a thing. It was like retroactively assigned to them, not the fact that they had to deal with the questions leading up to it constantly, which is obviously a huge deal. Yeah, so it really is in a class of its own.
I mean, if Jordan Spieth does what he needs to do, you could not be in a better position if you're like the PGA Tour specifically.
How did we not all parlay Rory at the Masters and Jordan at the PGA a week ago?
Is Phil in the U.S. Open this year, or does he have to qualify? Because he'd be the other guy who needs to.
Oh God, how long is that PGA exemption? It might be 3, it might be 5, and I can't remember for U.S. Open. I'm not sure.
I'm sure we could go on forever, Rick. I do want to maybe kind of end with you in the sense of we didn't get to talk to you much about your Augusta experience. Was there anything you can impart on us in terms of, hey, I got to do this, I got to see this, I got to hear this that maybe we would enjoy?
All right, I'll go through a couple of my notes here, and I've got them on cards. First off, Patrick McDonald got big times by Mark Deuce Bobick, the rules guy. So
Go on.
Patrick gave him a, hey, Deuce. And Deuce was like,
Don't do that.
Like, I'm not having any of this, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. No, I mean, listen, what I think is so interesting. We talk a lot about the tradition at the Masters and at Augusta, and I'm sure, Jason, you experienced this too. But like, as you're leaving, they don't say goodbye. They don't say safe travels. They might say that, but they say see you next year. And it is really, it's like we're already counting down the days. We are counting down the days until next year's Masters. They know that you're going to be back, or you want to be back, and they're going to be there. You talk to everybody all week, from driving the shuttles to working in the concessions to whatever. And it's, I've been here for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. I've been doing this. I've been at the 15th hole for 40 years, right? It's just what we do. And it is just so ingrained. I know it sounds like it's a cult or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not. It's great, but like that's if you don't get to experience it, sounds really weird. But when you're there, you're like, oh man, this is special, and everybody treats it that way. It's really cool.
Jason, anything to say to kind of build off of that point, being there so many times?
I'm not going to build off of that. Look, we can speak in terms of Augusta National that everyone's heard before. I'm just going to tell you my favorite story from the week, which is I think a pretty good one. I could have saved it for Sobel stories on Tuesday's show, but I'll tell you now. The last 2 days, I had the pleasure of doing the pregame show, 4 hours on Masters Radio each day with, Dave Marr hosting, and Steve Melnick and Jim McLean, and Hale Irwin joined us, and Craig Stadler joined us. And I'm just sitting there like, I'm an idiot because you guys are all smart and know what you're doing, and I'm just sitting here, whatever. So I'm calling play-by-play yesterday of the featured group, which included Jordan Spieth. And Jordan Spieth has a 30-footer up the hill with about 5 feet of left-to-right break for birdie on number 9. And Hale Irwin's sitting next to me, and I start calling it. And Hale, who's already, by the way, told me to be quiet on the show. I don't know what happened, but I got Hale Irwin yelling at me, and I'm like, that was like a top 5 career moment. Like, Hale Irwin's yelling at me to be quiet. Which is actually kind of cool. Hale goes, you think he makes it? And I said, no, it's a 30-footer up the hill. He hasn't made anything all day. And he goes, well, I'm a golfer. I like to go out on a limb. I say he makes it. And I go, well, I'm a bettor. I'll give you 3-1. I say he doesn't. And then I start making the call. Jordan Spieth steps over it. Jordan Spieth pulls the putter back. Jordan Spieth hits it. It's going up the hill. It's turning left to right. It's going. And I owe Hale Irwin a whole bunch of money. That was my favorite moment of the entire week. And I actually got a picture of me handing over $100 to Hale Irwin.
Wow, that's cool.
At the end, I took it away from him. And I said, you have enough money. Don't take it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Jordan Spieth magic. Speaking of that betting show, we've got now, Rick, you probably won't be joining us for the DFS show tomorrow because you're traveling. So it's going to be me and Mike on the DFS show tomorrow at 7:00. I think Mike had a really good DFS week, by the way, although Bryson did kind of let him down there late. We've got the betting show. Jason, that's me and you and Patrick and EC Tuesday night at 7:00. Rick, it's going to be you and me on the live chat, 10:30. We're going to be talking RBC, and I'll be splashing around some Corrales Punta Cana stuff too. Don't you worry. Friday, of course, is the round 2 recap, setting the table for the weekend. And then Sunday, I think we're back to doing the live show Sunday at 1:00, where we talk about live betting action and late bets you can take. So if you're new to this show, thank you for being here, but make sure you subscribe to this SportsLine YouTube channel. Because by the way, this YouTube channel is not just the Early Wedge, it's the Early Edge as well. Monday through Friday at 10:00. I host that show, and we got just a cavalcade of people that are the sharpest bettors around, and it's a really fun show as well. But gentlemen, this was a fun show. We got Josh, Rory's #1 fan. Finally gets to celebrate a green jacket. Jason, leave us with a thought.
We got to get Josh a Nike hat. He can't be wearing the Ludwig Oberg hat.
That is the Ludi hat too.
Reasonable. Yeah.
Ludi is so good. I was fading him this whole weekend, and it paid off because he tripled the 18th. Rick, you missed the story. I had Xander against Ludwig in an official play. I put it out on Twitter, and I tweeted out when Ludwig was on 17. I tweeted out, all right, this is a loser. Sorry, everybody. I shouldn't be fading Ludwig. Triple bogey the next hole. I cashed my bet. How about that?
Speaking of Nike, did you guys see the Nike Rory laundry mat
so good
commercial?
No.
When do you think they filmed that? like 7 years ago, or
and did not tell Rory. Rory had no idea.
It is
like destroy that thing.
It's intentionally got 0 faces in it for sure. For that reason, it's
of course
you could have been
right.
10 years ago. Yeah,
exactly.
Oh, that's good stuff. All right, gentlemen. Very good stuff. Rick, thanks for making it. I know you had a bunch of responsibility. And Jason, I know you had a bunch of responsibility as well. So really appreciate you all being back here.
Jason worked way hard, like way more hours than I did this week. So thanks for popping on, bud.
Of course.
Good stuff. And everybody in the chat, Joseph Boza, Matt Lawson, Taylor DeHart, Farzad, Alex Jones, everybody that's been in here, Scott Kobe, Jared Bell. Appreciate everybody hitting the like button, participating in this chat, and participating on this YouTube channel. We'll see you next time. Congratulations to Rory McIlroy and Rory McIlroy backers. We'll see you next time on the Early Wedge.